it'll be much more organized. A couple quick notes on kind of process and admin. Just a reminder that there are no photos that are permitted to be taken in the room. So please do. There'll be there's one person who's approved to do some photos, but in general, right over here. But for the rest of the room, please do remember no photos are allowed. And we're also going to make an effort to stay away from representing our agency positions and representing the issues today. I'll introduce the speakers with a summary of what organization they're with, but in general, we want to keep away from branding and really just focus on the content that we're here about. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started. And I will take the opportunity first to thank everybody who's here today. It's great to have the interest in this issue that I think is critically important. I think everybody recognizes how critical early childhood education care, early childhood development are. I think criticality doesn't necessarily lead to policies and funding that support that to move forward, though. And I think we're going to hear a lot in the room today, both about reinforcing why we need to think about these issues and talking much more about what we need to deliver the outcomes we want to see for children. Without further ado, what I'm going to do now is hand over to a colleague who's with us today. I want to introduce Vlad, who is a child from Moldova, from Lumos, and he has run consultations with young children with disabilities in early childhood intervention centers and inclusive kindergartens in Florești in rural Moldova. He's going to talk to us a little bit about that experience and set the stage for us and how critical that is. So Vlad, please, over to you.
Honored panelists, esteemed audience, dear colleagues, good afternoon. I'm Vlad. I'm 13 years old. I come from the Moldova and I'm representing Lumos, an organization which works to ensure every child grows up in a family. I would like to start my intervention with a short story. More than a month ago, together with Lumos and two of my colleagues, we organized some consultations with small childs. During the consultations, I met Peter. At the first sight, he was a 5-year-old boy who was smiling and who liked to draw. But behind his smile, he was hiding a story with challenges that would be enough for an entire life. Peter was born with a disability and couldn't grow and develop as his peers. He barely could move or pronounce a sound, and he could eat only by using a tube. After finding out about his story, I asked myself, what if this child was born in the same place, at the same family, but 15 years ago? I'm almost sure that he was sent to a residential institution. Fortunately, Peter and his family decided to write another story. He continued to stay at home and received support from the community. When he was 7 months, Peter started to access the Early Intervention Center, which is a service developed by Lumos alongside authorities from the region I come from. After a period of time, the situation of Peter improved, and he started to walk, speak by using syllabes, and his feeding tube was removed. Now he is going to the kindergarten and is enjoying his childhood alongside his sister and parents, despite the long list of challenges he is still facing. This case demonstrates that if we intervene with the right services at the right time, by the right professionals, we can rewrite the story and share hopes to a childhood and a fulfilled life. Peter's story is not unique and is replicated among dozens and hundreds of other children in my country. We still have many difficulties with a lot of barriers. However, we succeed to demonstrate that it is possible to intervene and support the development of a child, and through that, to prevent his institutionalization. Each child counts, each action is relevant, each moment can make the difference. Let's not wait for better times, for more resources, but act now when children need more support, especially in the first year of life. I think we can do this together. Do you think the same? Thank you.
Vlad, thank you so much for that. That was so inspiring to hear Peter's story, but also to hear your story or have you here to tell it. Really, really appreciate that. And I think the answer to your question is yes. I think we can speak for those in this room. I want to hand over now to Manny. I think looking around the room that most of us have picked up our packs of Legos and Post-its. If you haven't done so, they're just outside the door. But I want to hand over to Manny to talk a little bit about the role of play and what we'll do next.
Morning, afternoon. Do you have a bag of Lego?
Yep.
If you don't have a bag of Lego, you're in the wrong room. Let's start there. My colleague in the corner has one. You do need a bag of Lego. So if you don't have a bag of Lego, put your hand up and you will get a bag of Lego. You need a Post-it on the bag of Lego. You need this later. Don't lose it. Be careful. It's sharp. Open your Lego. Pour it out. We're going to have a little bit of fun. You're on the clock. You're going to be asked to use your Lego twice. You're going to be asked to find a friend. Lego is one toy that can be used in early childhood development programming for lots of different things. But for us here today, this is called a Build to Express Lego pack. And I want you, for the next sort of 2.5 to 3 minutes, to think about what Vlad has already spoken to us about. What are the challenges that Vlad has spoken to us about? Or what surprised you? Now, for the adults in the room who aren't specialists in Lego, this is going to be difficult and fun. Please, for the next about 2 minutes, build a challenge, express a challenge, or something that surprised you from Vlad's intervention in the form of Lego. You've got about 2 minutes. The time starts now. And that's everybody, please. No stress, but about a minute to go. Just a few stressful seconds left. And time. Time. There's nothing nicer than a self-appointed guy telling you what to do, playing with Lego at the United Nations. I do apologize. If you're sitting beside a buddy or a friend or a colleague, and if not, do scooch up, do find somebody physically close to you, and within about 10, 15, 20 seconds, try and explain your creation to the guy or girl or they to your left? Left. Let's go left. So you need to find a buddy and try and explain in 10, 15, 20 seconds what your creation was. So about a full minute to explain. Please move.
The fitting tube for the child.
That's so unfair. I have a mess.
I tried.
That's so cool. Can I show the group? Can I show this to everybody?
Of course.
Doesn't matter.
14 stressful seconds.
And 15 seconds, change over, please.
Time. I think it's time. I think, I don't know.
And Vlad said that's your time up. Sorry, it was stressful. We have a clock that's telling us what to do. Can you see this? I'm going to put it to the profile. Hopefully you can see it on screen. This is the feeding tube of the child that Vlad already mentioned. Please keep your Lego. Please keep your Post-it. The horrible person who told you what to do earlier will come back and ask you to do something again, even more stressful later in this side event. Thank you.
Okay, it's hard to come after play, right? But we trust that our colleagues can use that experience, that play experience, and also bring us back to some really critical messages that are going to be reinforced through the activity we just did. And so for that very tough challenge, we're going to hand over to Valerie Bischelmeyer from Make Mothers Matter to talk a little bit about what we can do to move this agenda forward. And you have 3 minutes. I'll just give you a little bit of wave. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Pamela, and thank you, Mani, for organizing the event and inviting Make Mothers Matter. As the name of my organization suggests, I will basically focus on the vital role of parents for early childhood development, whether they are biological parents or not. So I have 3 minutes and basically 3 key messages, and then I will make a few recommendations. So my first point is that parents, and in particular mothers, are the frontline workers of early childhood development, and they must be recognized and supported as such. Parenting is a rewarding but tough job, which is unpaid and requires time and energy. Parents must be supported in this long journey, especially during those critical early years. In particular, most of us are often not really prepared and informed about the importance of these critical early years for the child's future. My second point is that ensuring a safe and nurturing family environment for every child must be a shared responsibility. We know how important nurturing care is during the early years and how violence and adversity or even neglect can negatively affect the physical, intellectual, and emotional development of a child with lifelong consequences for their future. Maternal mental health is absolutely key, yet perinatal mental health issues are much more common than acknowledged until recently, and they impede mothers' ability to take care of their child. We also know that poverty is conducive to domestic violence, and we know that when men and fathers are involved in caregiving, domestic violence decreases. My third point is that supporting early childhood development and supporting parents, including mothers during pregnancy, is an investment, a high return investment, and certainly not an expense to be minimized. So based on these 3 points, here are a few recommendations. First, ECD policy really must support families in all their diversity, in particular single parents families, and ensure that parents have the required resource, time, information, and skills to raise their children. In particular, ECD policy should ensure that no child, no family lives in poverty. Second, ECD policy begins with maternity protection, which should be universal. Yet, according to ILO, only 36% of new mothers actually benefit from maternity protection. Third, ECD policy should also ensure universal access to quality healthcare for mother and child, including maternal mental health care, as well as education, including parenting education on such topics like nutrition, child development, child psychology, positive discipline, and so on. And last but not least, ECD policy must recognize, value, and redistribute and support the unpaid work of caring for a newborn, which can be pretty exhausting. In particular, redistributing this essential work of caring and educating children between men and women not only contributes to gender equality, but it's also good for children and for men themselves. It's really a triple win. All these policy elements could be part of a specific social protection package supporting child rights. I think the European Child Guarantee is a good example of what member states can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic, and I think you're also setting the bar really high on keeping to time. So so the pressure's on for the rest of us. But thanks so much for the for your insights. At this point, I'm going to actually hand back over to Manny, or to Emmanuel Sherwin, who will talk to us from the perspective of Hopes and Homes for Children and his role as coordinator of the Child Rights Connect Task Force on Inclusive SP. Over to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Sherwin, and I'm a policy advisor at Hope and Homes for Children. Tonight, when you go to bed, there will be 5.4 million children trapped in institutions or orphanages worldwide. It is the mission of Hope and Homes for Children to reunite these children with their families. We do this by supporting families to remain together and to close harmful institutions. Today, we face a critical challenge, ensuring that every child has the opportunity to grow, to learn, and to thrive in a family environment that nurtures their full potential. A family environment unequivocally is the best place for a child. Despite global progress, millions of children remain separated from their families, not because of any inherent identified need, but because they're denied access to quality early childhood development. And this ECD should be part of an inclusive social protection system. To address this challenge, there are three core areas for us. First, we must prevent family breakdown by ensuring families have access to vital support services, with ECD as a priority for prevention. Research consistently demonstrates that early interventions, particularly those that support parents, can help children from ever being institutionalized. Children with disabilities in particular face multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination and stigma, and are disproportionately represented in every single institution or orphanage worldwide. It is essential that we support all children to thrive in families. When separation does occur, our priority must be to restore children back to families as quick as possible. Family care must always be our top priority. Secondly, we must empower families to remain strong by embracing localization. Children's needs are best understood in their own communities, where the shoe rubs. By empowering local systems to deliver their own forms of care and protection, while strengthening inclusive social protection systems, we ensure that families have the resources they need to meet their children's needs in their communities. This approach reduces the likelihood of institutionalization and provides and enables families to provide stable, loving care to grow in their own environment. As an example, a few years ago, we conducted a global a global survey of 1,000 children's voices. And one of the biggest feedbacks we got was from the children. Parents should be given advice on how to resolve conflict in a non-aggressive manner, especially in front of children. This behavior affects children adversely and can lead to psychological harm. In conclusion, it is our responsibility that every child should grow up in a safe and nurturing family, prevent family breakdown, by strengthening families' capacity to stay united through inclusive social protection programs, in particular ECD. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. This is such a critical issue in the region in which I work, Europe and Central Asia, and around the world. So thanks so much for bringing that up. Next, I'm going to hand over to Susan Durston, who's here representing the Moving Minds Alliance. And we have 3 minutes. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I'm here to talk about education in emergencies and early childhood. Millions of children under 8 face violations of their rights due to conflicts, disasters, and displacement. Emergencies deprive them of essential care, leading to malnutrition, trauma, and violence, while weakening caregivers' ability to provide support. Despite international legal obligations, early childhood development in emergencies remains neglected in humanitarian responses, and disjointed systems fail to integrate comprehensive ECD services. You might be interested to know that a child in a stable country receives more investment in a month than a crisis-affected child receives in 5 years. The sector receives less than 3% of development assistance and only 2% of humanitarian aid. 6 in 10 young refugee children never attend preschool, missing critical development opportunities and the opportunity to build skills and the chance to exercise their agency as they grow. We have some recommendations. Firstly, strengthen laws recognizing inclusive early childhood development as a fundamental right for all children aged 0 to 8, or as we've heard, maybe even before 0, including and especially marginalized groups, and strengthen intersectoral coordination, workforce training, and accountability mechanisms. Secondly, strengthen multi-sectoral data collection to inform policies and ensure equitable financing for early childhood initiatives. Thirdly, allocate a proportional share of the humanitarian budget to early childhood in emergencies with a recommended minimum of 10% and increase by 2% annually. Integrate early childhood, this is number 4, early childhood development in emergencies into emergency plans with fully funded interventions covering health, nutrition, protection, education, and caregiver support. Implement culturally appropriate programs with local early childhood experts. Ensuring holistic early childhood in emergencies is a humanitarian imperative and a legal obligation under international law. Prioritizing and accelerating investment in early childhood in emergencies safeguards children's survival, development, and dignity, and upholds their fundamental rights. The recommended actions will help break cycles of poverty, build resilience in communities, and foster a peaceful, equitable, and sustainable future for generations to come. And our vision in this alliance, which contains nearly 50 members, is a world in which families and communities affected by crisis can nurture the well-being and development of their young children and uphold their rights. And to achieve this, we advocate for better outcomes and equity for young children affected by crises everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's such a critical issue and some very scary data that you presented as well. Without further ado, I want to hand over now to Louise Thivan to talk, who's a child and youth-friendly governance. He works on the Child and Youth-Friendly Governance Project to talk more about that.
Well done. I even struggle pronouncing that myself sometimes. So thank you so much for having me here today. And also thanks to my co-panelists for the insights they shared with us. As the name of our organization indicates, we work with child and youth participation in all settings. So we believe that children can only meaningfully realize their rights if they have a voice in decisions impacting their lives. And what has been really interesting is this wasn't, I think, for a couple of decades what we considered a forgotten right, but in recent years, the participation of children and young people has been gaining a lot of attention globally. This is really great, but we remain highly concerned with the fact that this seems to be a right that is mainly safeguarded for older children. We see very, very restricted participation of children below the age of 14, and very much so below the age of 8. So while the right to participate in the Convention's Article 12 is a right that evolves along the lines of the child's development, this does by no means indicate that young children cannot participate. And we find ourselves feeling very surprised about this, because what we hear from leaders globally today is they want young people to vote. They are calling for more active, responsible citizenship from both children as well as young people. And they play a lot of emphasis about the role of children as young people as being the ones that are going to solve many of the future crises that await our society, such as the climate. So in light of this, it is surprising that children in many ways are deprived of the opportunities to develop their capacities to participate, to become responsible citizens. And at the Child and Youth Friendly Governance Project, we believe that active citizenship and democratic learning should begin as early as the age of 3. We believe this because children, they can communicate and participate from the age of 3. Already from early infancy. If you hold a sour gherkin towards the face of an infant, the child will immediately demonstrate that they do not, or most infants would demonstrate that they do not want to neither have that gherkin close to its face nor eat it. And so the real question is, in our eyes, like, are we listening? There is evidence that demonstrate that children as young as 3 can meaningfully participate. That has not been around. That is now there. There's also growing evidence that demonstrates that children in learning settings in schools, that there is a direct link between their motivation and to learn and their well-being and their participation in decision making. Child participation is a critical measure to ensure that we offer services to children and their family that are effective and cost efficient. Child participation fosters active participation and, later in life. It's all right. I timed this before, I promise. Anyhow, and the most important reason for doing this is that it has positive benefits for everyone involved. Children develop confidence, life skills critical and sought after in the labor market later on, and they create a sense of belonging in a world where many children feel lonely and struggle with many things. Organizations that engage children meaningfully get to design more fit-for-purpose programs and policies. And communities benefit from social trust, including decision-making and stronger civic engagement. The question is therefore not whether it's possible, but whether we are indeed providing these opportunities. There is a lot of fear that it's not possible, that children can't participate constructively, that it's time-consuming, it's expensive, the list is long, tokenistic at worst. But I'll give you 3 short examples, and then I will stop on how this is possible in the early age. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Scotland, they consulted children as young as 3 when they did the impact assessment. In Denmark, children are in some kindergartens, they're assisting the recruitment of kindergarten staff, providing them also with critical life skills. And in Germany, there are examples of democratic kindergarten council. So I think these examples show that when done right, child participation is not only possible, but it can genuinely transform how we conceive and engage with our children and our youngest generation. Thank you. And apologies, Pam.
It's an important issue, as is the next one that we'll talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we catalyze financing for the early years. I'll give some introductory remarks as well, and then I'll hand over to Dominic Richardson from the Learning for Wellbeing Institute to share additional kind of reflections. To keep myself honest, I'm turning on my alarm now. I promise I will stop on time, but this is no surprise to anyone, but essentially, we know that that early childhood development has gained recognition politically as one of the cornerstones for national development. An increasing number of countries are embracing that by introducing national ECD policies and developing comprehensive implementation frameworks for those. So often those encompass integrated policy frameworks that provide for a multi-sector package of services, recognizing the breadth of what is included in early childhood development, in order to create these nurturing environments that we've heard about where young children can survive, thrive, and flourish. Financing is essential to make those integrated policy frameworks functional in practice. And we know that a robust ECD financing strategy should be looking at both your midterm needs, your long-term needs. It should be incorporating population and geographic projections, and it should be critically looking at issues like equity, like efficiency, and like effectiveness, and make sure that those are taken into account. The same types of services don't work for everyone, and we need to bring those elements into discussions. The financing strategy should look explicitly at mobilizing resources through the national budget process from a diverse set of options. We increasingly see the adoption of government-led financing strategies to implement ECD policies and programs. And we know that domestic financing remains the most important and the most sustainable mechanism to expand high-quality ECD coverage for all. Domestic financing is a natural starting point for this one. We know that ECD is essentially a public good. We're talking about a service that has positive externalities for the economy and for the society in the short term and in the long term. So it makes sense that governments are prioritizing this as an area for investment. And that they're prioritizing also families and children who cannot afford these services, so making sure that the most vulnerable are reached. But ECD financing is not just about those domestic resources or efficiency gains in the use of public resources. We know that development assistance has played a critical role as well, particularly when it comes to pilots and innovations. In their initial stages. We see attention from donors on this, especially because of the links to things like economic returns from care and what we heard about a little bit at the beginning with the role of women's time usage. I see my time running out, so I'll say another area that we can bring in here and is maybe looking a little bit more at alternative and innovative financing models, public-private partnerships, results-based financing, social and development impact bonds to expand services. We know some of these have been piloted within the Europe and Central Asia region. We know countries like Malta offer free childcare to working or studying parents through public-private partnerships. We at UNICEF are working together with Western Balkan countries on identifying opportunities to expand both in an equitable and high-quality way through these services. And I am out of time, so just to say there are many examples. There's much more we can do in this space, but it requires creativity, and I think we're a very creative bunch, as we can see by our Legos here today. So I'm sure we can fulfill that. But for more on this topic and perhaps an opposing perspective, I'm going to hand over to Dom.
Great. Thank you, Pamela. Excuse me. Early childhood is in crisis globally. If you're born in a sub-Saharan African country, you can expect across your life course to receive about $11,000 invested publicly on your childhood. Only 6% is saved for the under sixes, despite them making up a larger proportion of the overall number of children altogether. In high-income countries, it's much closer, and we're talking US dollars PPP, to $230,000 per child. 30,000 of that is saved for the preschool years. This is contrary to human rights, to child rights. It's contrary to the idea of integrated services, which allows for indivisibility of child rights. It's contrary to who can access the services they need, the public goods they need. This creates discrimination and inequality. And it's contrary to the evidence base on human, child, social, and economic development. Why start our processes of development at age 6 or worse, at age 13? All of the good stuff has passed. All of the opportunities to learn from the innate human skills and build on the very foundations of humanity and the things that children bring to the world have passed. We've weakened them. We need systems that have universal gender equitable parental leave policies, childcare services which are also equitable to access and of high quality. We need universal child benefits to facilitate all families to invest and care invest in and care for their children. This is not an impossible dream, and the returns are immediate. You don't need to wait 40 years to see returns on childcare. It happens the day the mother is able to access the labor market and increase the family income, or the child has a good day. And that's enough investment for some of us. So what do we do with this crisis? Why I say it's a crisis is because at the peak of COVID, December 2020, 14,000 people died. Every day, because of poverty-related causes, 13,700 under fives die every day. This is a crisis of magnitudes much bigger than COVID. Now, during COVID, the G20 stopped asking countries to pay their debt interest only. For African countries, that's worth right now about $2.7 trillion. That's the type of money we can use to see change. We don't talk about innovative finances. We don't talk about foreign assistance, which is about 160 and getting lower. We talk about unlocking debt relief, debt forgiveness, because only then can we meet the types of figures that stop this crisis being another generational crisis, and instead is something we can deal with today. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, both for putting things in perspective and for bringing up the important issue of debt financing as a source of funding this critical area. I think everybody is probably ready for more play. So what I'm going to do, that might not be what I'm going to do. Hold on one second.
We have another speaker connected online.
Oh, is she? Oh, okay. Okay, fantastic. So somebody else, I guess, will project. Excellent. Okay. In that case, we have the pleasure of having another speaker who is connected online. This is going to be Amina Shishani from Plan International, who's going to be. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Sorry. You'll have to use your headpieces.
Hello, can you hear us?
It's on.
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead and speak, please. We can hear you.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Amina, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the meeting room. I'm actually here at the registration waiting for my papers to be completed, but that's okay. I'm happy to be here with you. Actually, I'll just go fast because I know I have a limited time for my presentation. I would like to share my experience with you working at Plan International Jordan, working closely with the Syrian refugees and also Palestinian refugees, which are based in Jordan and have been there for years now. And we've been working closely with them in humanitarian response, in addition to working with vulnerable Jordanian children in Jordan. What we are proud of is developing parenting programs which were already integrated within holistic approach interventions that served ECD in emergencies and ECD in general, because we work both in humanitarian and development contexts. What I would like to emphasize is the importance of having parenting programs implemented through comprehensive approach. And in Plan International, the comprehensive approach we focus on depends on working closely with relative ministries and authorities that would help us sustain these programs. So through our experience, we work closely with the Ministry of Health to integrate parenting awareness sessions within the health services inside health centers, and also with Ministry of Education to develop parenting programs for their KGs and to engage parents actively in the learning process of young children. Also, because we believe in localization, we empowered local agencies to adopt these parenting programs and to continue implementing them with the required government entities. Also, it was really important for us for these parenting programs to be interactive, where we integrated child-parent activities where parents and caregivers would deliver particular and structured activities with their children and learn from the feedback how to accommodate these activities for further enhancement for the children. And the parenting programs we developed, they were tailored and accommodated for different contexts, whether it was the humanitarian context where they were implemented inside refugee camps, whether for Syrians and Palestinian refugees, or in development contexts. And also they were accommodated to be delivered both online and in person, because in certain contexts, parents were not able to attend the in-person sessions. So also these parenting programs, including the manuals, they were all, I'm sorry about the noise here in the background. So they were also implemented online for parents who couldn't make it. And this could be for several reasons. The difficulty of the area or the region. Also, in some poverty pockets, parents are not being able to cover the transportation cost to attend parenting programs. So it was really helpful to have this flexibility in delivering these programs. Also, there was a lot of focus on providing capacity building programs for frontline social workers and even medical staff inside the health centers, social workers in other contexts, and also providing capacity building for like TOT programs for core teams. And to ensure the professional development of those staff in delivering these awareness parenting programs.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up with just the final 10 seconds, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so all in all, what we would like to focus is having the parenting programs delivered, as I mentioned earlier, in harmony with other supporting interventions and as a holistic approach, guaranteeing the sustainability of these programs to be eventually adopted by local entities and by the government within their different ministries, just to have them integrated in a sustainable manner. So if you'd like to know more about our programs, we're happy to share our experience with you with the details, I mean, including the manuals developed and the training packs, etc. And all the lessons learned we have, gathered cumulatively over the years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being flexible. We hope we can still get you in the room in the last 10 minutes that we have. I don't know if you can hear the applause, but thanks so much. All right, so on that note, what I'm going to do now is hand back over to Manny.
Okay, can you hear me? Yep, super. Who was still building and playing with Lego through the whole session? Yes, I saw you. Some people built castles, some people built wonderful and weird things. We heard of lots of challenges and surprises about early childhood development. Take your Post-it, please. And thinking about your power, what you can do in this world for early childhood development. Take a pen, look at the creation you made at the start of this session and think about what promise can you make to help fulfill a better world of ECD. So write it down, take your Lego home with you, take your Post-it home with you, and think about it. And the next time you talk about ECD or we're talking about ECD, perhaps you can reflect on how far you've reached your challenge. It's personal. You don't need to share it this time. Please do feel free to take the Lego with you. There are some more on the door if you want to bring some more home and play with them on the way home. Try not to drive playing with Lego. It gets very messy. One video and then.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to end the session now with a video. We're going to hear from a child from Syria. She's 9.5 years old. She I think. And she's an advocate for children affected by war and who are forcibly displaced. Unfortunately, couldn't be here with us in person, but we're going to hear those remarks to help close us out for today.
Hi, I'm Joyce. I'm 10 years old and I'm from Syria. Ever since I moved to Portugal, I've been really missing my home country, Syria, because it has my family, friends, the food, the culture, cousins. What I wish we had there to be able to stay there and not have to leave are better life conditions, not shootings, missiles, or bombs, kidnappings, but education, safety, child-friendly spaces. A message to all of those who have been affected by the war or who have been in the war or have to leave because of the war. Stay strong and never, ever, ever lose hope. We as kids, we are not fully developed by our brains, by our bodies, but we need to go to school, to play, have food, have water, and most importantly, to not live in fear. I really wish I was with you in Geneva right now to tell you my story, but I'm not. You know why? Because I'm Syrian. Why should it matter? If I'm German, Syrian, Palestinian, or Turkish, or a refugee, we're all kids at the end of the day. We're all humans at the end of the day. It shouldn't matter. To all the world leaders out there, please stop all the wars so we can live happily and safely as kids. Thank you. Hi, I'm Joyce. I'm 10 years old and I'm from Syria.
That was quite a message.
Cannot hear. Cannot hear. We cannot hear the speaker.
But we also heard from children who are taking that role on in decision making at various ages, and we heard that that can happen for children as young as 3, and we really need to find ways to bring them into the discussion. We talked about how we fund this, and I think Dom gave some provocative remarks as well on how we know that the returns on childcare are immediate. And we also know that failure to finance ECD is a crisis, and we need to look at creative mechanisms, including unlocking debt as a way to address that. We heard about parenting programs that were in place for Jordanian refugees and how important it is to have these comprehensive, holistic parenting approaches that really recognize the diversity of contexts and are tailored for those different contexts. we heard or we saw through our collaboration with our colleagues at Lego, and a big thanks to them for this, the critical role of play and how that brings out our own creativity and also helps us understand our own power. And finally, I think we had great closing remarks that I'm just going to repeat rather than trying to top in any way, which are basically don't live in fear and never lose hope, which I think are really, really critical, and we all can walk away with that. So a big thanks to everybody for being here today and for our work together going forward. Thanks so much.